if there's no one to really guide you, like say there's information over here out at you.
Yeah. So you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And
No. No. That's ignorance. Let's not celebrate ignorance.
No.
Let me ask you.
Pause.
Let me ask you.
I also want you to pause for a second because.
Okay, hold on. Again, we are doing the wrong thing, guys. You're doing the wrong thing. I didn't talk about the IBC thing, so don't bring it into the issue of ignorance.
All right. Let me just bring this back to the studio because we've been dealing with this issue of information for a very long time because we we talk to a lot of people and there's just majority, and I'll give an example, something very important, the election, like the last election that was held here. There was of course issues on the IBC side in the fact that these announcements were being made the very last minute while a lot of diasporans were in Kenya. But yeah, like Omosh Fire, I don't know what you think or maybe what you feel about this, because we are out here on the ground with the day-to-day people, and this is what they're telling us.
The diaspora are very I think somebody said
Michael Joseph said Kenyans are a very peculiar.
I was gonna.
So Kenya diasporans are very peculiar.
Oh, of course.
They are in fact more than peculiar.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also, in a way, what I've realized, they're creatures of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And once they are formed, whatever habit it is that
they stick to it.
They stick to it.
Yeah.
So to get somebody to drive 30 minutes to come to the embassy to register, so that they can vote, is not something that one is willing to do. Give them a party, they'll drive an hour. They will be there.
Absolutely.
So sometimes it's a matter of what are their priorities, not necessarily what is being put out there for them. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of communication, even what Big Ted said, and as you were saying, there needs to be a better way of reaching people. And the question then becomes, what is this better way? If, for instance, the embassy is using, say, church groups or civic groups to contact folks, if you're not a member of those groups,
you won't.
Yeah, SOL.
Yeah, you won't.
Now, something that I think they're not necessarily doing is using folks who are in entertainment, who do these parties, the barbecues, blah, 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 all of that, because all these people are on some sort of list somewhere. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So you can take these guys who do parties. On their promotion list, they hit these folks, the people who go to their parties, the ones who they always send the flyers to and saying, hey, we have an old school night here, or we have this happening here, or we have that happening here, and I'll take rugby as, one of those things that we've always done, and we've always had parties, we've had, to study type things. So those would be areas where the embassy would need to show up, even if it's, and I know Kenyans don't necessarily like to give their info, but show up there, which they do, but then also get info from them.
Yeah.
Ask them, and there's always that issue of, once I give you my info, what's going to be done with this info? And that's a huge deal with the folks who are here in the diaspora, knowing where this information is going to go. And it's part of the reason why they may not even register with the embassy, because they don't know what's going to happen with their information.
And much to piggyback on what you're saying, I think what Big Ted did very successfully, and why he was able to get people to do certain things that they would typically not do before, is that Big Ted wasn't showing up the first time when the embassy needs something. So the habit that has been there before, and this is just constructive criticism, was people get contact with the embassy when the embassy needs something. For example, the president is coming, we're gonna need people. So that becomes problematic, like if that's a first point of contact. But then if there was, like regular contact on other things, even when there's nothing going on, just a regular way of engaging Kenyans, then it becomes easy, to show up and say, oh, there's this and this happening, or maybe there's this registration of Kenyan event that's happening, please come through. It becomes easier. So I think that's something, moving forward. Big Ted has been doing it unofficially. Maybe structures can be created to officialize, that engagement. Another thing also, not criticism, critique Big Ted. Kizungu hapo nimecheza na maneno. I think, the State Department for the Diaspora that was created is a good step, because originally, I think diasporans had requested for a standalone ministry, but this was a step in the right direction. A State Department for Diaspora Affairs within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. However, one thing that I have noticed, and this is just from experience and seeing, there's certain things that are best done by your embassy staff that's already here than by people coming from Nairobi. And I think that's one kink that needs to be worked out, especially when it comes to the registration, the passports, the advertising. I think there's certain things that can be done more efficiently by people who live here, who work in those embassies, who work as local staff. They know the community. It works slightly better. This is just an observation that I've made, but of course it steps in the right direction. I don't know whether Mike has something to say. Then we're gonna come to you. We're gonna come to you, Big Ted.
What I wanted to say was, I think, and Udi mentioned this, and I think this is going to be a discussion for another day. And I think he was talking about how sometimes we sort of shoot ourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And goes to Udi's comment, which he says, we also have to admit that we have a lot of crabs. We are crabs in a barrel, because we sort of seem to want to pull each other down, not prop each other up.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the reason sometimes, he has mentioned how, and it's not even just him, but, sometimes even as you go through life, as you go through stuff, it becomes hard. For example, Omosh talked about people complaining about driving half an hour.
Mm-hmm.
You recall we had an issue where people really wanted the IBC to go to their bedroom.
Yes.
Online, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
They wanted to do this online. But in fact, they have not, the first step has been accomplished. Things have to be ironed out.
Correct.
Right? In order now to facilitate, even before we get to online, can we now first facilitate just going into the embassy and registering or what is needed before we even do that? It has been presented, but we'll find a way to knock that down. We have been fighting for a while to get the ability for the US, for Kenyans in the US, to vote.
Yes.
To cast
we
a
have been
ballot,
complaining, we have been whatever, we've launched, and I remember even Kerea Expect Peter, putting a motion, and of course the response that we got was, we're following the constitution because it's a process. The process finally arrived. What have we done? It is here. In DC, 300
Saba
300
total,
people.
all through.
In whatever. So it may not change. It is definitely not going to change with us. Maybe our kids, but it also depends on what we're teaching our kids.
Yes. Depends on what we're teaching our kids. Let's go to Big Ted. We've talked about a lot of things. I just want him to chime in on a couple of those critics, not criticism, critics that we've put out, and it's all in the spirit of wanting better efficiency. Big Ted.
All right. So this is what I always say. Whenever you compare, what are you comparing it to? For example, if you compare the services you're getting from the embassy,
mm-hmm.
it's in comparison to what? If it's saying we want better services, what are you comparing it to? I'm here. I've had guys complaining about the DMV and other things. So it's sometimes it's eggs and oranges, which don't match. Number two is I understand that there has been the diaspora is averse to government services because of how they feel they have been treated in the past. But now when government comes and says, okay, we are coming out of our way to try and help you, where are they? Where do guys come out? Like, let me tell you guys, if, for example, we know very well in Seattle, we have 12,700 people, and we do an exercise and get 200 people. It means the other guys didn't care, they didn't hear about it, or they were busy. People are saying, okay, we want to vote. And you have to understand, for you to vote, you must be Kenyan. How many of you have your IDs? How many of you have your passports? How many of you have requested for your dual citizenships and are in the right state? If you say you only vote with your passport, how many of you will manage? Okay, if we say that we want you guys to have a seat in parliament, finally. Okay, but the whole of the diaspora in America, you must choose one guy. How will that work?
Ali Badawi.
Now,
Mtoto wa Masai.
Mjukuu. Yeah, but
Hata huyo pia.
yeah, but Ted, you know, like sometimes, you know, like when I talk, because I used to have that attitude of kusomea watu, kwa nini hamkufanya hivi, but over time I've been trying to empathize and just understand why certain things are not being done. I'll tell you, for example, like the registration part, you can see like Slay here says, for people who are out of state, there was not ample time given to allow us to register. It was a good move, but we just needed more time. And that's a very fair assessment.
Very valid from somebody who's out of state.
200% assessment, because from the moment that IEBC announced to when the registration began, it was
2 weeks.
It was 2 weeks.
Yes.
It was exactly 2 weeks.
Yes.
And that's definitely not ample time for someone to prepare to take
Absolutely.
time off. And then now you have to come and register and then fly again to come and vote. So we spoke to IBC
Within the same year.
Within the same year. We spoke to IBC, they came here and we gave them, you know, like a hint. I don't know whether they took it, but diaspora, for such things to get buy-in, you need to announce at least 90 days in advance. You know, you need to at least announce 90 days in advance. Even these big events, be it Vegas, Nanini, announcements don't just pop up, you know, like 2 weeks before. There's a method to this, to the madness of diaspora. And I think that's what needs to be understood, even by the State Department of Diaspora, when they're announcing that they'll be in this city, in that city. 90 days is the magic number. Worst case scenario, 60 days.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
But I think, and okay, for people like in Texas, like like people out of state, people in Texas, yes, it was short notice. I look at the people in the DMV.
The DMV had no excuse. Yeah,
That's
fair
me.
enough.
For me, those ones, there's no excuse whatsoever.
Yeah,
Because people will drive an hour to DC to hang,
Correct. And that's what I was alluding to. That's what I was saying.
but just to register and to get yourself stuff, to get yourself.
Let me even take it. Let me take it further. Who do guys want in the diaspora to come on this show for them to tune in? All of them.
Ruto.
Guys had 2 weeks. Okay, and it's the same thing that I hung out with guys, and then the same guys called me last minute, like, "Hey Ted, you know what? My passport just expired, man." So I asked them, "But I was with you last week. Why didn't you tell me?" You know, Ted, Maze. Earlier, I was with you at Rugby Sevens last year.
Yeah.
We had a stand for giving passports, IDs, and everything.
Yes.
People came from out of town. How many guys went there to get their passports and IDs, but were here for 4 days doing? So, is it really, really important? And let me tell you, the culprits are usually your people,
Correct.
who will always call you last minute. Tell them, Maze, I've had an emergency. Maze, I need to go to Kenya today. The first thing I always ask them is, did you apply for a passport? So guys want it to be last minute and then complain that I'm at the airport, I called you, you did not listen, and you did not come to help me.
Wow,
We get those calls here all the time.
yes, we
As guys who live in the DMV, we all, and I know I get those calls. Ali does.
by the way,
and Uno does.
we are like a customer service desk, because we tend to, the people who work in
Outreach.
the embassy, they tend to get a lot of calls, so they have trained us on questions to ask, because we don't want to keep forwarding calls to them, because they're already getting a lot of calls. In fact, to me, local staffers, that's another group of people that rarely,
They don't get
is
their
out
kudos.
talk, but they don't get their due.
They don't
Don't get their due, because what they do outside normal working hours is and I think Big Ted, maybe you've gotten wind of this or word of this, is very amazing. And to me, one thing that I would actually want, if I had the chance to meet with Prezo when he comes, is make sure these local staff are taken care of, because they're the engine that keeps the day-to-day moving. That's very important. The work they do outside business hours, because we know them. The diplomats come and go. They come 2, 3, 4 years and go. These are people who've been out here in the US for the last 15, 20 years or even more. So they're known to the community.
Yes.
So that's another group that I think I just wanted to plug them in. And it's very important maslahi yao iangaliwe vizuri.
And it's funny we are talking about that, because somebody is asking me here, ask Ted, what is the benefit then of the State Department? Kenyan State Department. Big Ted.
Okay.
You're muted, sir.
Sorry, which State Department?
The State Department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Diaspora.
Yes.
The State Department for Diaspora in
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now, you see, the Kenya Kwanza government made a commitment that it will set up a special State Department to handle the diaspora. And that's the responsibility that we have. Now, but let me ask you, I am sent here by the State Department of Diaspora to meet Kenyans. Where do I get Kenyans? If I want to send a newsletter today to all Kenyans in the States, who has the database?
Where do you get Kenyans?
Wow, that is a very heavily laden question. It varies, right?
But we can answer that question.
It varies.
We can answer that question by telling you the fastest spaces that spread Kenyan information within our circles, whether it's positive or negative information. There are certain spaces where information moves fast. And I can tell you one of the spaces where information doesn't move fast. I know for a long time, the embassies have been dealing with places of worship. Let me just say churches. And there's a limit. The churches, they do have a crowd, but there's a limit. But the spaces where, from our own experience, where information moves fast is with certain influencers, and especially people who are within entertainment spaces. I know, like government officials, not you, Big Ted, because you already know that space. Government officials don't like hearing this, but that is a place where you need to go, where you can reach as many people as possible, even if it means paying those people who are spreading that information, because these are the people who can disseminate information to quite a big group of people
100.
within a very short period of time. So to answer your question, that is a space that can get information out within the fastest time to the largest spread. Big Ted.
So this is my thought. My thought is that this is a space which we can build together. The government does not have the space 100%, and you don't have it 100%. But we can build the space and add value to it by being able to create it and to create that space for this part. Yeah. So it's important that even as we go to the next step and the next level, that we build up these particular spaces. And that's why you see, you guys asked me if I can come to your show 500 times. Why? Because we need to build spaces that we can speak to our people in. every group of people who have influenced people in the world have their own spaces where they speak to their people. So for us, it's either the churches. Our generation is not necessarily the churches. But the older guys, it is the churches. Ours, it's places of Dunda, social, rugby, Toyoyo, Miss Kenya, things like that. Now, what about the third generation kids? How do we influence them?
Yes.
So this is a step-by-step approach which the State Department is going to build the various levels that it can interact with our people. But for the beginning, we're starting with MCS. When you go on the ministry website, you get the microsite for the State Department for Diaspora. There's an option for you to register. And then you can be receiving some information daily, and it grows.
I also think, let me say this. I also think not necessarily having a database, like you were saying, Ali, I think there are other ways that the government can definitely can find ways, and like you're saying, those social spaces, getting those influence, especially here. If you want to communicate, because by a quick show of hands, how many people go to the embassy website?
0. And I'll be honest. Yeah.
I only go if there's somebody who has called me and their passport is stuck.
But would the embassy be a good source of information if you need it?
The embassy website.
The embassy website.
It actually would be.
It would be.
It actually would be. And the reason why I say that is like when somebody is trying to apply for stuff, yada yada yada, all those forms are there, all the links, go to eCitizen, blah blah blah, step by step. They have all that information there.
Now, so the question is, why is there information sufficient enough to really help you? Let's say, for example, if you want to renew your passport,
there is.
If you want to renew ID card or get information on your ID card,
it's there.
It is there.
Yeah, all that information is there.
Where is the disconnect? Is it that people don't? I'm assuming people don't know, or is it that people don't care to know? What is it? What?
Even
or is the government?
Even going back to the issue about voter registration, even people in the DMV, because I'm in a space that's called customer success. So in customer success, we try to see the problem not from us, not seeing the customer as a problem, but trying to find out why is it that they're not buying this product, or why is it that they're not doing this, why is it that they're not using this feature.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been analyzing our population to that level, and I think especially there was a time when the embassy had started being active on social media, but it's kind of like there was a pause or almost a stop. If you go check the Facebook page, for example, there was almost a stop, and even I think X and other areas where they were in. If they could have, right now we live in an age of, a social media manager. We had to get someone who can manage our social media. We are familiar with social media. We had to get someone who could manage our social media. I think while the website can be a good resource, it's still important.
Let me ask you something, Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Which is the most popular website for Kenyans in the USA?
The most popular website for Kenyan in the USA, probably Google.
No. Which Kenyan website?
You're talking about a Kenyan website.
Mwakilishi?
I don't know whether Mwakilishi, at some point it used to be the most popular website.
I don't know which other one.
Nowadays people don't per se go to websites.
Okay, which platform do you think is the most popular amongst Kenyans?
I would say Instagram, Facebook, and maybe now TikTok with the younger generation.
So Instagram and X.
Which Kenyan platform is the most popular?
Or
who is the most influential Kenyan in America?
Who is the most
influential? Who people will listen to?
Or who has the most followers?
Entertainer. Shinsky.
Or who has the most followers? Yes, I think we can talk about Shinsky. Shinsky is one of them. Sunny Sistuki is also getting there. But Shinsky, as far as followership is concerned, I would say Banan Shinsky is number one. You know, I don't know of any other Kenyan who has
YouTube.
more reach than
Yep.
Shinsky has. Because even you know, like people's grandmothers might know who Shinsky is.
Because the thing is this, is that number one, why we'll always channel people back to the ministry site is because today, Shinsky has the right to, if he's paid, he can put an opposition propaganda there. Tomorrow, he can put ours if we pay him. So we must build a platform that is purely ours, and the information there is verified as legitimate.
Okay.
And then once we have ours, then we can use other people who can pick from ours. Because what becomes the reference point for us putting an information on Shinsky's site, and then tomorrow the opposition can also pay Shinsky to put stuff on theirs. So as it is right now, we must build ours and then go out. But at the same time, I want to encourage people like you, OneMic, people like Jeremy Damaris and Kenya Marekani, Wakilishi, everybody else who has a podcast, broadcast in America, to continue building them, because those are the simple ways that will bring them. One of the other things is I've had very many businesses come to me, and now actually I have some information for you guys. We'll talk off after the show. There's a very big roadshow coming to DC, and the guys called me to ask me that, hey, said, we're doing this thing, I've been sent to you, we're doing this thing in DC. Are you able to get this message out to the Kenyans in DC to come out? Now, if I never ever interacted with you guys, I would never have used you. I'll go use who? Maybe the embassy, and maybe guys will listen to it. I'll use whatever it is that I have.
Yeah. So let me go through some comments that were coming in while we were having this conversation.
Hot and fast.
Let me start.
I think
with
over here from
Washeke.
yeah.
Let me start with Washeke. Washeke says they set up for failure with the registration time frame. The mentality and the way things work in Kenya don't work for us. We go by schedules here.
Correct.
And then
She's so right.
Udi says, Ted, DMV have no excuses. Some of us in ATL are too many, but can't travel anytime we want. And then Ruth says, the local staff in embassies go above and beyond 100% of the time. I direct at least 5 calls to them every year, and I'm not the only one. So that's something that I hope, like, is being paid attention to. And they also have a lot of institutional knowledge. Pablo says, let's also agree, while systems have been put in place, it's also our responsibility to go get information. A lot of it are either ignorant or try to get information from unreliable sources. Yeah, and
But also
yeah.
But also sometimes, if you don't know, you don't know.
When you don't know what you don't know.
If the embassy is not if the information is not, if there's no one to really guide you, like say there's information over here out at you.
Yeah. So you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And then
No, that's ignorance. Let's not celebrate ignorance. Let me ask you. Let me ask you.
I also want you to pause for a second, because here, like, you understand, in this space we are in full support of Kenya, but I think where there comes pushback, because right now, to me, if it's one isolated person, I think we can isolate that as an ignorant person. But then when this issue is with masses of people, because generally even in businesses, that's how we deal with things. If there's an issue, let's say on a website, like maybe one person has brought up 2 people, 10, 15 people, that means there's an issue with the design of that website and not with the people. And that I think should be the way, rather than, like, be quick to call people ignorant. I think ignorance is not en masse. Yes, there might be some isolated ignorant people. They are there, but it cannot be an en masse thing where there are people.
Hold on, Ali. Hold on.
Yes.
I didn't call anybody ignorant. I called the excuse that you don't know ignorant. Just slow down. so that I'm not taken to be calling the diaspora ignorant. I don't want that kind of story. All I'm saying is this. If you have a new phone and you want to know how this phone works, what do?
YouTube.
You read the man.
So how come we have guys who don't know, yet there is YouTube?
But there are people who just don't know.
No. I'm asking.
I'll give you an
You
example.
have a phone. I'm talking about the guys who have a phone, not guys who don't have.
No,
You don't have. I'll say yes.
I'll give you an example. And we as guys deal with live examples day to day, and that's the reason why we try to isolate ignorance with things that are en masse. So, like the voting issue, yes, there were some people who knew and they chose not to do it because they wanted it in their bedrooms. But then, just the science of information, you're an entertainer, you're a promoter, you know very well not to promote an event that's a big event just like a week before. Like there's a marination time where there's core people who are going to get it early, and then there's other bigger crowds that they're going to start getting it as time goes by. So this information, as it was trickling, myself, I got that announcement. And remember, us right here, we are people who are embedded in tune with Kenya day to day.
Yes.
I got that information when I was in Kenya,
December.
Yeah, it wasn't even December. It was already January.
it was January.
It was January.
Because
It was
you had
not
just
even
come
December.
from Kenya.
Yeah, we had just come
It was
back,
already
yeah.
January. So
Oh
I'm
yeah, because
thinking
they announced, but they had not confirmed.
So
Yes.
so I'm thinking, like these 2 weeks, the first thing that came to my mind before this information trickles to a lot of people, by the time it was getting to some people were texting me telling me, I wanted to register, but this information got to me too late, and too late is maybe 3 weeks later. And even when you're promoting an event, 3 weeks is not a very bad time for someone to receive that information. So we can't say the guy who got that information 3 weeks later
Ali,
and wasn't able to do it.
hold on. Again, we are doing the wrong thing, guys. You're doing the wrong thing. I didn't talk about the IBC thing, so don't bring it into the issue of ignorance. I'm talking about Kenya has made the new old passport obsolete. We have new passports.
Mm-hmm.
It is on YouTube. It is on the website. It is on a search. When you want to find out something about rugby, 7th, what do you do? Right now, if you want to find out, is Kenya playing in the rugby 7s, what do you do?
You'll Google it.
I ask Siri.
So I'm talking about
If you're a
where
rugby, if you're knowledgeable
where the
in rugby,
information,
Yeah.
where the information is out there, but you do not take the initiative to find the information. That is what I'm talking about, because I am 100% sure this conversation will be taken out of context and used to flout this particular show that we are having. So to avoid that, I'm trying to make us understand so that it's on record. I'm talking about Kenya not playing at the LA 7. Now, if I'm there, I'm saying, oh, me, I'm going to watch Kenya, but I can just check it out. Let me check. How do you apply for 1, 2, 3? How do you do this? How do you do that? How do you do that? I'm saying people also must take the information that we have out there seriously. So that you say, I want to find out, can I fly with an expired passport? Can I get this? Can I get that? I'm not talking about us coming to do an event and 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I understand 100%. I'm talking about information that is out there and somebody can easily go on and get it, and they do not.
Okay, fair enough, Big Ted.